This is 5 on 20 News with Luke Goodhart.
And I'm Frank Powers, coming to you live from our studio in downtown Tucson. It is Wednesday, July 5th. Let's talk local headlines.
A group of Republican representatives, including 3 Arizona congressmen, are calling for the elimination of 4 national monuments in the state. The kill list includes Ironwood Forest National Monument, the Sonoran Desert National Monument, and the Parashant and Vermilion Cliffs National Monuments. Also on the list are the Bears Ears Monument in Utah and almost 24 others across the country. Arizona Representatives Paul Gosar, Andy Biggs, and Trent Franks joined the group to support the Trump administration's plans to use the Antiquities Act to take away the monument's protected status. Gosar said that President Obama supported out-of-state extremist groups who foamed at the mouth to lock up lands to serve their own agenda. Biggs said that Obama's actions were federal land grabs and took away millions of dollars in economic activity. But Pima County Board of Supervisors head Sharon Bronson said that the Arizona congressman did not consult the board in their decision. She says that the monuments provide millions of dollars in tourism and contribute to the character of the area. All 4 Arizona monuments were designated under President Bill Clinton in 2000 and helped make Arizona the state with the most monuments, with 18 designated sites. The group of GOP congressmen sent a letter to Secretary of the Interior Ryan Zinke urging him to review the designations. They pointed out the prohibition on mining and geothermal energy production, as well as a ban on recreational shooting on the Ironwood Monument. If they are successful, which is fairly unlikely as it would still have to go through Congress first, this would mark the first time that the president has taken away the status of a national monument. And what a proud moment for America that would be.
American pride going, Mr. President. Arizona Senator John McCain addressed a delegation in Afghanistan. He did this to criticize the U.S. war effort in the country, is what was going on in Afghanistan. In Kabul, McCain said that the U.S. has been pursuing a goal amounting to don't lose rather than winning. McCain joined Democratic Senators Elizabeth Warren and Sheldon Whitehouse, as well as Republican Senators Lindsey Graham and David Perdue, to share their concerns over worsening security in the country 15 years after the war began. Warren said that without a clear plan, political patience in the U.S. would eventually run out. The delegation came at a time when the Trump administration plans to send 4,000 additional troops to Afghanistan to join the 8,400 troops who are already in the country. Meanwhile, Trump has proposed cutting the State Department's budget by 32% and suggested closing the offices of the special representative to Afghanistan and Pakistan. These cuts were proposed despite experts agreeing that Afghanistan cannot be won through military might alone. They suggest that a strong diplomatic presence is necessary for bringing peace to Afghanistan, which is riddled by feuding tribes and government corruption. Graham called this lack of focus unnerving and called the State Department understaffed. Responding on Twitter, the president suggested cutting Senator Lindsey Graham's staff by 65%. Hashtag future endeavored.
What a bunch of cranky old white guys. We've been reporting on the ongoing opioid epidemic in the U.S., and according to new real-time reporting on opioid abuse in Arizona, there may have been up to 444 overdoses, lighting change, in the first 2 weeks of using the system. Governor Doug Ducey ordered real-time reporting on the opioid problem after declaring a state of emergency in the state following reports of rampant overdoses. In the first weeks of reporting, there were found to be 200 overdoses in Arizona. Information is provided by law enforcement, first responders, healthcare professionals, and healthcare facilities. Ducey's emergency declaration followed a report finding that there were 790 people who died of an opioid overdose in the state last year, an increase of 16% from the previous year. Of the 444 overdoses reported, there were 36 suspected deaths, which would be an average of 18 per week. If the trend continues, then overdoses would far outpace the already frightening level of 2016. Now, who could be responsible for such a disaster? Perhaps this next headline will have a clue.
Clues? Meanwhile, Arizona drug maker Insys Therapeutics is being investigated by Attorney General Mark Brnovich for deceptive advertising of their opioid-based products. The company allegedly understated the addictive qualities of their product, which is a form of the opioid fentanyl that's sprayed under the tongue. Insys has already settled 3 cases in New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Oregon for overprescribing opioids, although the company did not have to admit guilt because money. This is the same Insys that contributed $500,000 to campaigns against Arizona's Prop 205, which would have legalized marijuana in the state. Later, it was revealed that Insys was developing their own form of synthetic marijuana. But don't worry, because Insys is being punished on the stock market where, wait, their stock went up over 3% today. Hey, Governor, drop a doozy. You think you could maybe look into this one?
What a chump. Arizona is seeing historic lows in birth rates, which match nationwide trends. The National Center for Health Statistics released a report yesterday showing that the national fertility rate for women between 15 and 44 years old was 62 births per 1,000 women. Meanwhile, the Arizona Department of Health Services reported that the state's fertility rate was 63.9 births per 1,000 women. This would be the state's lowest birth rate since the 1980s, the earliest data available. But it's not completely bad news. Heck, it sounds like great news to me. The declining birth rate was met with a national decline in births by women in their teens and 20s. National birth rates for women in their 30s and 40s have risen, but not enough to offset the other decreases, according to Scottsdale obstetrician Dr. Julie Quatra. So take out those dusty Prince and Luther Vandross records and get to baby making, Arizona. Or use all that money you're saving on baby food to build and stock a global warming apocalypse bunker. Totally up to you. Now in national and international news.
Let's find out what's going on, because the Wall Street Journal got a sneak peek at a survey of State Department workers that was released today, showing that the agency isn't exactly happy with the direction of the country. In the survey, State Department workers expressed worry that the President and the Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, don't understand the role of the department. Workers also expressed concern for the direction of the country, which one respondent stated that people do not speak optimistically about the future, echoing more than half the country. Some individuals also worried about proposed deep cuts to the State Department. In his budget proposal, Trump announced a 37% cut to the agency's budget, which caused one employee to state that this will hamper our impact to fulfill our mission for decades to come. Others mentioned that staffing gaps in the agency, as the Trump administration has failed to fill several key State Department posts. The survey contains over 35,000 employee responses that are likely already in the White House dumpster, beside a tattered copy of that Constitution we love so much.
Major U.S. oil companies such as ExxonMobil and Chevron, have you heard of them, are lobbying the government to hold off on additional sanctions against Russia. The sanctions were approved by the Senate in a 98-2 vote a couple of weeks ago. In addition to sanctions, the Senate approved a measure that would block any attempts by the president to halt the sanctions. The president has urged House Republicans to remove the portion of the bill that prevents him from easing sanctions against Russia. The American Petroleum Institute joined the coalition of oil companies in opposing the measure, claiming that Russian sanctions would impact their business around the globe and end up empowering Russia. In June, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, who was formerly CEO of ExxonMobil, urged Congress to allow the president flexibility in adjusting sanctions on Russia. The Senate will vote again on the bill after their July 4th recess and believe that it will pass again easily. Oil companies are planning a sit-in on the floor of Congress because they claim their free speech campaign contributions aren't being considered.
Illinois Governor Bruce Rauner vetoed a budget deal that would have increased taxes and ended a 2-year period of unpaid bills in the state. Rauner posted a photo on Twitter of the vetoed bill and said that he would not agree to a, quote, permanent tax increase. Illinois has gone 2 years without passing a budget and has gathered a $15 billion tab for unpaid bills. While the state has survived without paying, the state was threatened with junk bond status, which spurred the legislator into action. The state's comptroller said that even though citizens haven't felt the crutch yet, if the problem wasn't solved, then the Illinois school system would soon need to make some major cuts. The budget deal included a raise to the state's income taxes from 3.75% to 4.95%, a nearly 30%. This would, I believe that's nearly 3%. This would have brought in an extra $5 billion in revenue to pay for the $36 billion spending plan. Governor Rauner had requested restrictions on the compensation program for injured workers and state employee pensions, although with 4 years statewide property tax freeze. None of these requests made it to the final bill, adding to Rauner's objections. The showdown between the governor and the legislature began when Rauner was elected in 2015 to cut taxes and reduce the influence of the state's unions. Rauner has suggested skipping out on the bills altogether and running away over the state line, where he'll be given a warm Indiana welcome.
The Trump administration concluded that North Korea fired an intercontinental ballistic missile Monday night. They told Pyongyang that the U.S. would use, quote, the full range of capabilities at our disposal to fight the threat, which could mean anything from a retaliatory attack to a strongly worded tweet by the president. The administration followed up the warning with a joint military exercise with South Korea, where the two nations fired missiles into the waters along North Korea's east coast. North Korean President Kim Jong-un said that the missile was part of a 4th of July present to the Trump administration. Earlier today, the administration held a closed-door Security Council meeting to discuss the provocative actions. China and Russia, who share a border with North Korea, called for a freeze on Kim Jong-un's nuclear program and a suspension on large-scale military exercises by the U.S. and South Korea. They also called for the U.S. to avoid deploying the THAAD missile system, which would intercept attacks from North Korea. Critics of the missile system say that it needlessly provokes North Korea to react. While the missile sounds scary, experts say that North Korea lacks the ability to launch a nuclear warhead to a missile. They would need a similar warhead, a smaller warhead, in order for a missile to reach the U.S. Regardless, expect lots of saber rattling and incomprehensible tweets from the president. Maybe someday Trump will realize how much he has in common with Kim Jong-un, and they'll settle it over a skinny dip at Mar-a-Lago. And with that horrifying image, we've reached the end of today's headlines. This was Luke Goodhart.
That would be anything but a skinny dip. All right. This was Frank Powers for 5 on 20 News. Next up, stay tuned. Next up, immediately after this, stay tuned for a panel discussion of what we can do locally about the opioid crisis. We've been speaking with people who have been in the trenches, in the emergency room, in the public defender's office, and in the family of people. Solving this problem means pulling together as a community, and you can be a part of the solution. So stay safe, stay healthy, and stay creative. Toot toot Tucson.
What is going on?
Starts doing that.
Because we haven't had the monitor forever, so I haven't been when it's going on, but I've been wanting to do the fireball out of my hand. Yeah.